UFC 263 will be headlined by the anticipated rematch between reigning middleweight king Israel Adesanya and the fast-rising contender, the Italian Dream, Marvin Vettori. These two have fought once before in what could easily be called the last stylebender's hardest fight to date, going to a split decision after 3 rounds. Vettori brought the pressure and heat with his impressive ground game while Adesanya showcased his top-tier kickboxing. Opposite ends of the MMA spectrum collided, with Adesanya edging out the victory, but since that loss, Vettori went on to amass a dominant 5-fight win streak in his rise to title contention. The two divergent paths come together once again in this classic striker versus grappler matchup. In this video, we'll break down both fighters' skill sets and how they match up against each other. First, let's take a look at the tale of the tape. Adesanya stands at 6 foot 4 inches tall with a reach of 80 inches, and Vettori stands at 6 feet with a reach of 74 inches. Adesanya has a 75% finish rate while Vettori sports a 65% finish rate. Now, let's talk about each fighter's striking, starting with the champion. Adesanya is one of the best strikers we've ever seen inside the octagon, and he has easily outstruck every opponent on the feet. With over 100 total fights, including an extensive kickboxing career, Adesanya has remained a student of the game and continues to improve till this day. He doesn't rely on power, but well-placed intelligent shots. Although Adesanya can bring the heat like we saw against Gaslam, he's generally a cautious fighter, sporting excellent counters and punishes any forward pressure from his opponents. Switching stances often and using a wide variety of strikes, he makes it difficult for his opponents to time his rhythm and movements. To make it even more difficult, Adesanya is always moving laterally, never letting his opponents back him up against the cage. The worst mistake you can make against him is to overcommit to a strike and lunge in. One of Adesanya's most prolific strikes is his lean back left hook, which he used to drop both Whitaker and Paulo Costa. Adesanya is tall and lanky and has a significant reach advantage over almost everyone in the division, including 6 inches against Vettori. Combine that with the wide kickboxing stance, he makes it difficult for opponents to close the distance. Adesanya generally avoids the clinch and he aims to strike from a distance like a sniper. This core principle carries over into his kicks, which are an important tool inside of his arsenal. Against Costa, we saw Adesanya employ debilitating calf kicks to finish off his combos. Low kicks work very well to slow down your opponent's movements, and against a precise distance striker like Adesanya, a slow, flat-footed opponent is ideal. Adesanya will also mix in teeps with the rear leg to maintain distance, but also switch up front kicks with question mark kicks. You think a kick is coming to the body, and next thing you know, bam! You have a shin upside your dome. Adesanya will throw kicks with both legs, whereas most fighters generally tend to favor their dominant leg. Lastly, we wanted to talk about his feints. Adesanya is constantly feinting in all of his fights. Whether it's a subtle hip feint to hint at a kick before going up top of the punch, or faking a jab to whip up a roundhouse kick, these feints can make his opponents both hesitant to pressure forward and make more fatal mistakes. Izzy has a significant strikes landed per minute of 3.95 and a significant strikes absorbed per minute of 2.63, giving him a solid striking differential. He has a striking accuracy of 49% and a striking defense of 61%. Now, let's take a look at Vettori's striking. It should come as no surprise that Vettori's striking is not as refined and crisp as Adesanya, but that definitely doesn't mean it's subpar. He's a southpaw striker with solid fundamentals and some heat behind his hand. Vettori's straight left cross down the pipe is his most dangerous and effective strike. Vettori doesn't overcommit to his cross and throws it out effortlessly, which is what he used to drop Jack Hermanson in their fight. He doesn't load up and instead keeps his left hand loose and often down low so that he can throw the cross fast. He sets up his left cross with his lead hook, which is his other top strike. He doesn't jab as often as most, but instead he uses lead hook to replace it. He'll use it to come over the top of his opponent's jab as a counter or throw it as a leaping lead hook. It also sets up the left cross as a simple 1-2. Vettori will also use his lead hand to hand fight against his opponent's lead hand to set up the hook and cross as well. Vettori keeps his hands low as the fight goes on, but he employs good head movement to slip and counter with his lead hook. He does get caught on the ends of punches sometimes, but is rarely ever in trouble. Vettori isn't very kick heavy, but does have a solid low kick as well as a good left body kick, which is always a staple seen in southpaw fighters. Vettori sports a significant strikes landed per minute of 4.14 and a significant strikes absorbed per minute of 2.90, which is a similar strike differential to Adesanya. He also has a striking accuracy of 44% and a striking defense of 66%. He has the 3rd highest striking defense in middleweight history. Remember to keep in mind that since Vettori is a strong grappler, his striking stats are influenced by his ground strikes. Let's take a look at the grappling. Izzy, on the other hand, there isn't much to speak about when it comes to the ground game. but for all the right reasons. By now we know Adesanya loves to stand and strike, but the reason he's able to utilize this is because of his strong takedown defense. In the history of the middleweight division, Izzy has the second highest takedown defense. Adesanya has never had a submission win in his MMA career, but this is because he finds a way to end the fight with his fists and feet rather than his jiu-jitsu. Adesanya has shown exponential growth in his defensive capabilities throughout his UFC stint. It shouldn't come as a surprise that Adesanya doesn't have much of a submission game in MMA, having only one official submission attempt in the UFC. Adesanya does what he needs to keep the fight standing and at range the best he can. Moving on to Vettori, it's safe to say he's quite the opposite when compared to Adesanya. Vettori definitely has no issues against fighting on the feet, but the grappling world is where he shines the best. After all, 9 of his 11 finishes are submissions. He has a takedown average of 2.22 and a takedown accuracy of 53%, takedown defense of 78%, and a submission average of 0.8. Vettori sports a wide arsenal of takedowns, with his favorite being the double leg. Vettori has multiple setups for the double leg, with his most common one being from the clinch against the cage. Vettori is very strong and put a lot of forward pressure against his opponents, and if he locks his hands behind you, you're going for a ride. Vettori will also set up the double leg by circling towards the lead leg while ducking under his opponent's strikes. Another staple of Vettori's wrestling is the body fold with the body lock. Vettori will grab his underhooks either from the clinch or a failed double leg attempt and fold his opponents backwards by squeezing their lower back. He'll accentuate this with the inside and outside leg trips to help take his opponents down. Once on the ground, Vettori becomes even more dangerous with a wide variety of submissions, having wins with guillotines, a toe hold, rear naked chokes, and a triangle choke. He has more guillotine wins than anything else and usually uses a modified arm-in guillotine for the finish, similar to Jack Hermanson. Vettori is calm on the ground, moving fluidly from position to position without getting sloppy to maintain control and lay down some ground and pound. Against Hermanson, we also had a chance to see his defensive capabilities when he defended many submission and grappling attempts, although we likely won't see them in this coming fight. Lastly, let's take a quick look at the clinch. Adesanya, as we mentioned, prefers to stay at range and tends to avoid the clinch, only using it when he needs to create space by framing away from his opponent with some knees, or when his opponent is already on the ropes. Vettori, on the other hand, uses the clinch offensively a lot to set up his takedowns and wear on his opponents. He often aims to get underhooks to be able to set up the body lock or the double leg, and has excellent use of pressure and head positioning to achieve his goal. Looking at how these two fighters match up, it's easy to tell the difference in skill sets. Adesanya will look to maintain his distance and constantly be feinting and circling away from Vettori to avoid grappling exchanges, all while looking for those precise counter strikes and leg kicks. It's safe to assume that leg kicks will be a staple in this fight, given how effective they can be with slowing down aggressive fighters and Adesanya's previous use of them. Adesanya had a relatively easy time with striking exchanges in their first fight, but lost points in grappling and clinch exchanges. This is likely where Vettori will aim to take the fight as the rounds go on. He will look to pressure and get Adesanya up against the cage, since he doesn't usually shoot for takedowns in the center of the cage. From there, he'll look to secure a takedown and drive it home with ground and pound and possibly a submission. Adesanya's fight with Blachowicz showed the blueprint for beating Adesanya, but the question remains, is Vettori strong and skilled enough to repeat that kind of performance? We'll find out at UFC 263. Leave your predictions in the comments down below on who you think takes it and how. If you're looking for a fun community to engage with that loves MMA just as much as you do, make sure you check the link in our description below for our Discord link. Thanks for watching our video. If you like our content, please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe.